Good morning. You're watching the unedited version of Sunday Morning Linux Review. To listen to the final version, please go to our website, smlr.us. Thanks. All right.
All right. And we're not going to have intro this week or the intro sound bites.
Yep.
Um,
They're being updated.
that's
In
right.
transition.
Yeah. And we
That's right.
figured, what would you guys want? Do you want something done fast and not good, or do you want to have something good and have it take a little time to get there? And we
That's
opted
right.
for
We'll
the
go for
second
good.
one.
Yeah.
And
Do it right the first time.
that's right. That's right. Sing once and I was going to do a take off that. Was it measure twice and cut once, or
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
measure once and cut twice, something like that. All right.
All right. So you're listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. This is Tony Bemis,
Mary Tomich.
And Tom Lawrence.
and this is episode 157. Five nines?
Yeah, that's right. Five
Nine,
nines.
nine, nine, nine.
No. Yeah.
That's right.
Not that we're super reliable like five nines typically talks about, but this is again the .9999 show of the Sunday Morning Linux Review,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yep.
we again along the same lines that we just said that we wanted things done right the first time, and we took a little bit more to prepare for our SMLR 2.0. Um,
That.
so we're gonna stick with the old format for one more show, and then starting September of 2015 will be
Mm-hmm.
SMLR 2.0.
That's right. Cool.
Um, yeah,
So, well, all right. We'll just kind of swing into what we normally talk about at this
sure.
segment or this stage in the show.
So how was your last couple weeks, Mary?
Well, I have a big hating on technology. No, I think the last show I was talking about the fact that I was going to probably upgrade my Kubuntu machine to 15.04 from the previous version, and I went ahead and kicked that off yesterday. And there are a couple of big changes in the most recent version of Kubuntu. One is that they moved from Upstart to System D, and then the other change is that the display manager, I had been using Light DM, and the default for 1504 is SDDM. So when that part of the upgrade prompted me to make my selection, I thought, well, I'm going to go with the default rather than go with the existing one I had. I went with the default for 1504. I selected that, that little end curses display that
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
have to kind of tab around and then hit enter. So I went and did that, and then continued on with some of the other things I was working on. So then, when it came time to reboot into the new system, um, I had nothing. I had a black screen. It was black. It was backlit. I could tell that the monitors were on, but
Mhm.
I was not getting anything. So finally, I kind of hit a few keys and ended up with the boot sequence. And what apparently has happened is that Light DM is there are some triggers or something that are still available, and the system is picking those up. But the problem is because I made that selection to SDDM, it is not. There's a conflict there, and so I can't even pull up a terminal to go in and maybe fix a configuration file or do some changes at that end. So the system just hangs.
Oh
And
man.
yeah, it's in the system D sequence, and I can see it there. It's very
Yeah.
informative, but it's just hanging. So
Hmm. Yeah,
um,
I had that problem when I was doing the in place upgrades of Mint.
mm-hmm,
They say not to do it, but I do it anyways.
mm-hmm.
And it's because the login manager. I think I use well, it was MDM, the
Oh, Mint
Mint
display
display
manager.
manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would always screw up
Mm-hmm.
in the upgrade, and then you can't log in. Your system's
What did you
for
end up
normal.
doing? Just reinstall?
Yeah, actually,
Yeah,
if you do to get to the command line, it's not just Alt F1 F2. You have to do Control Alt F1 F2, and then because when you're going
oh,
from the graphical to the
mm-hmm,
non-graphical
mm-hmm.
command line, you have to do the Control Alt then
To grab
F1.
a completely different session so you can get to the command line.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't do that. And so I think when I go home, I'm going to see if I can save it. But,
yeah,
you kind of reach a point where if it's going to take me 5 hours to fix it
Yes.
versus 30 minutes to reinstall a
right,
clean version, I always opt for the shorter time because my time is valuable
right. But what I
because I'm
ended up
getting older.
I
Yeah.
did research into which file it is you have to edit.
Hmm.
I could never get that right, so I ended up just uninstalling all the DMs, and then reinstalling just the one I wanted, like the
Mhm.
MDM,
Hmm.
and then it started working.
Yeah, if I can get to a command line, I can fix it. But I just didn't seem to be able to even do that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
anyway,
that's
but that
tough.
was that was my one problem. I
But you
ended
and you said also that you the same system you'd been upgrading for the last what, like 6 years.
5 6 years, yeah.
Yeah, so
So
it probably is due for a fresh install.
just a fresh install. I think I'll just kind of
Yep.
clean it up. So
Yeah,
so that's probably what I'll end up doing. Although I'll take a stab at it just to see if I can. And because
Yeah.
my home directory is on a completely separate partition, I'm not too afraid of screwing up, the root partition too
cool.
much. So
Yeah,
anyway, but one of the things I thought I'd do as part of that thought process is I downloaded the ISO onto my PCBSD laptop and then wanted to burn it, but I had a little bit of a problem there. I then tried to update my PCBSD laptop. I had an update problem there,
oh
but
no,
I was able to go back and just do the underlying FreeBSD update. And once I did that, there was something was hanging. It's all good now. So,
yeah, I that happens to me all the time. When it rains, it pours.
oh, it was
You'll
everything.
have 1 or 2 days of just everything is just breaking and nothing's working,
Hmm.
and then you go back to do the exact same thing a day later, and it works fine.
The only system that was working of mine was my Windows box. I
Oh,
hate to say it, but that was true. But anyway, the only other thing, on Thursday, I went to the LiveBug meeting. That's the Livingston County BSD user group.
Oh, cool.
New user group. They started in May, and Michael W. Lucas was there presenting on ZFS. So
yeah,
that was a nice overview of it. He kept it to relatively high level because he had just a prescribed amount of time, and then he talked about just installing it and maintaining it, and some of the really neat things you can do with it, and a few of the gotchas, that type of thing.
yeah,
So, but anyway, so yeah, that was pretty cool. I'm gonna start to go to that meeting. It's a little bit of
cool.
a hike though. It's 40
When's the,
miles.
when is it?
It's the third Thursday of the month. There's a meetup. If you go to
Okay.
meetup and look for it.
That coincides with the Washtenaw Linux users group, so I get to
Oh,
pick and choose now.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
So
unfortunate.
yeah, so it was kind of interesting. Yeah, there's guys there that kind of BSD guys. So,
They're always hardcore. That's why I want to go.
yeah, they are. I tell you, I just sort of sneak in there.
Right.
I'm a newbie. Don't kill me.
You've been using it for a while though,
Yeah, but I've been using it at a very superficial level. I'll
but
be I'll be completely candid here, but I mean I know how to do KLD stat will give me the list of the kernel modules that are in, and I know some of the basic commands, but that's I
okay.
just don't have time to jump into it because I'm doing other things.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
watching the stock market plunge on Friday, that was morbidly
ooh.
fascinating.
I don't have that issue.
I'm in cash, so anyway, but all right, enough of me. Next,
Yeah, cool. Tom?
Tom.
Well, your KDE rubbed off me a little, so I tried it, and unfortunately, Kubuntu did not like my computer setup very much.
Oh, really?
So the problem was after I loaded it, as I rebuilt my computer, new 8-core
Hmm.
processor, 16 gigs of RAM, and I
Yeah.
have my ATI video card with 4 outputs. And I heard
Hmm.
there was some multi-monitor issues. I have a triple screen setup, and K12 did not like it. It would get to the
You
login,
talked about,
and it
yeah.
would just log me back out. You'd log in, it'd log me back out. I'm like, oh,
Oh
I
no.
couldn't stay logged in. And I guess it works fine with the 2 monitors, but it didn't like the 3. There was a bunch of forum stuff I found to fix it, and I lost patience pretty quickly. As I said, I got work to get done.
Hmm.
And then I loaded straight up Ubuntu, the latest version. Well, that created a new issue. It wouldn't. It kept crashing on boot, and it would just make the black screen, but you hear the drunk, 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 and it would get in a
Yeah.
loop there. I had to unplug 2 of the monitors, log in, and once I logged in once and it finished setup, then I could plug the other monitors in and it worked perfectly fine. I don't know why it wouldn't do it on first boot, but it kept failing.
Well, it kind of
Weird.
reminds me of trying to burn the DVD,
Yeah.
the Kubuntu ISO on this machine. This morning early, I couldn't. It wouldn't. It
Yeah,
just
it's
wouldn't
working
happen.
now.
And then I rebooted, and suddenly it's working. So sometimes I don't know.
But
Right.
I did get a
Mhm.
new virtualization server built for my office, and now that I got it all
What are you
finished,
using?
PHP VirtualBox version 5
Okay.
and VirtualBox version 5. The
Okay.
versions actually coincide with each other. So PHP VirtualBox is a PHP web front end,
I was going to ask you
and it's
what is
very
PHP?
slick. It
Mhm.
looks just like VirtualBox. All the functions are there, and I mean all of them. They've cloned it into a PHP front end, and
Wow.
but they even did little niceties like when you open up the settings manager, you can
Mhm.
drag it around inside the window. There's no purpose for that, but it's great that they did it to give you the feel that
Mhm.
you're using an application, not a web interface.
Yeah.
So, but tit for tat, everything's in the same spot as it is as the standard desktop app.
Mhm.
A couple advantages though was I did this on Debian 9, which of course has system D in it. The boot up time, I think we timed it, is 14 seconds,
That's
and it's completely up and running. I'm talking like
wow. That
including
is
the
fast.
virtualization parts are all up and running now.
That's
That is
fast.
fast.
It's crazy. Of course, we did build this on SSDs and
Oh,
the
32 gigs of RAM.
only 16.
Okay.
So we didn't
Yeah.
go too crazy because the nice thing about Linux being so lightweight, we only run 4 servers, and each server only needs a gig of RAM to run, so we actually have a lot of room to play.
Yeah.
We actually there's now a Windows 10 box running on it too that has 2 gigs RAM assigned to it for the peering. I just leave it in a virtual because we don't use Windows, but we needed to update the other client computers that come in.
Oh, so the 2 gigs is
Yeah,
fine
so
for
just by
it.
leaving
Okay.
it running, it
Just say it
shares
sounded kind of
itself
light.
with the other ones.
Mhm.
But I'm going to be creating some tutorials on how to set up PHP VirtualBox. There's a couple nuances to it.
Mhm.
They have some pretty good tutorials out there as well, but sometimes they don't tell you how it. You just assume you're like, oh, I'll just run all this as root, right? No, you actually there's a hack to do it that way, but everything has to run as a user. And then oddly enough, it doesn't have the startup scripts in there to start the web interface. I don't know why. You have to write your own. So I copied the ones I wrote from PHP VirtualBox 4 right over, and they work perfectly fine.
All right.
Oh, that's
a nice
good.
system.
Saved you a little time.
That is cool.
Yep. And I'll talk a little about relax and recover, which is what I'm using. Because once you go through the trouble setting all these up, you want to make sure you have a good image to reload it.
I don't know why they didn't call it recover and relax because
Yeah.
usually that's what you'll do after you recover.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
But
Huh.
quick on an SSD, the 240 gigs are only $69 now. So we even built the RAID array is now built with SSDs because why not?
Yeah, that makes it fast.
Say that again.
240 gig SSDs are now $69.
What manufacturer? Generic?
No.
Just generic?
SanDisk and Crucial are both, they're competing on price.
Wow.
If
yeah.
you want to spend, I'm sorry, the SanDisk ones are $79. Now for $69, you get 430 megs a second. For $79, same 240 gig, you get 525 megs per second. So
Wow.
if you need something a little bit faster, spend $10 more. They're just becoming ridiculously cheap. So I think we're going to start seeing these mainstream within the next couple of years. I mean, that price drop's amazing.
It
Yeah.
is. It
That's
is.
a 240 gig.
240.
When you said it, I thought you said 240 gig drives.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's
But we went and set them up in a RAID array with
Mhm.
all SSDs. We have an SSD boot and a RAID array for all the data, and it's just I said for the price
Yeah.
because we were using in the old system Velociraptor drives, but now they have 5 error-free errors of continuous use, and I said okay, it's time to. I'm just retiring them, not because there's a problem. They're just going to go in some other less crucial things.
Mhm.
They've worked great. They've had no problems.
how many years?
5 years of continuous use.
Wow.
No bad sectors on any of them.
That's really good.
Wow.
I've always liked Velociraptors. I've used them there. It's going in another
Mhm.
basic backup server. So yeah, it's not. But the Velociraptor drives are still pretty affordable too.
So are you? So those SSDs, are you using no? I have an SSD in my home system, and that's my Windows system, and I use it for the operating system, and
Yeah.
all the files go on there's a hard drive in there.
Yep.
I think a 1 terabyte hard drive that has all the files, all documents, and those kinds of frequently accessed stuff. And I'm still under the impression that SSDs that you kind of wear them out after a while. Is that
Well,
still the case, or
Yes
you know?
and no.
Mhm.
The problem with SSD is catastrophic failure is
Mhm.
unpredictable versus a hard drive. Like it's making noise, it's reading slow. I got some errors. It's probably going to die.
Mhm.
Not every drive. Some drives just don't turn on one day. SSDs, my experience with them has been they fail catastrophically quickly without warning.
Mhm.
We just had one fail, and one of my employees, he had a really nice Intel one, which was an enterprise drive we had acquired,
Mhm.
and he was using it, and it just his computer couldn't boot that day, and that was it. The controller itself died. But overall, there's a guy doing a extreme wear leveling test, and they're now smaller drives, but he's been continuously rewriting the drives now for several years, and has not developed any bad sectors. Has not they very limited amount
Okay.
of bad sectors on them. So he's proving that they really are durable. My problem is, like for example, on my laptop, I have a 120 gig SSD boot drive. I do video editing. I would just waste this drive and space just after a few videos because I shoot
Right.
everything in full
Yeah.
1080, 60 frames a second.
Yeah.
So I'm producing massive video files. The reason I have this laptop is HP EliteBook. I have a terabyte laptop drive in here because it holds 2 hard drives in
Mhm.
addition to a boot drive, a SSD. So all my data files are stored on that, and all my boot in
Yeah.
OS is on the main one. So I don't have the problem of storage and space issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But with them getting cheaper,
Yeah, you know,
They're
the
very
reason that
attractive.
where you're not seeing that problem is because they over engineer them so that, I mean, those sectors are going bad.
yeah, but
It's just it rewrites it into a new sector before
yes.
it actually goes bad.
Copy on
Um,
right.
Well, he published a document showing the shrinkage of the drive overall. Some of the drives,
Mhm.
there's ways to see it, and it shows you the overall drive shrinkage that you just lose it. So instead of having a bad sector, it realizes that was a harder to read sector, so it
Mhm.
replenishes it with the spares. And
Okay.
there's some of them that tell you how many spares are still in use, but they give you a lot of them. So
Yeah, there's something, isn't there close to like 25% spares?
something, yeah, it's
So
some
if
number.
you had a 200 gig drive, there's actually like 50 gigs, another
Mhm.
50 on there. It just won't let you use it because of that wear leveling.
Oh, and
Okay.
in the show, in the news, the second quarter 2015 um, hard drive report is out
Ooh,
from Backblaze.
we'll have to look at that. Yeah,
Do
that's always
yeah, we'll
interesting.
talk about that later, but
Okay.
do not buy Seagate 3 terabytes. All I'll say is 28.6% failure rate for all installed. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That should be a recall. You can't have 28% of your drives fail.
yeah, that's pretty bad.
Hmm.
All right. So I guess we will continue on.
Yeah. What about you?
Oh, me. Well, one of the
Family.
reasons we
You're
were
busy.
gone, we took a 3 week instead of 2 week this last time.
You're on
It's because
vacation.
I was on vacation for the 2 of the 3 weeks.
Good
Yeah,
for
I
you.
was, and I was doing the opposite of what we're doing right now. I
Off
was
the grid.
unplugging. Yeah, I had my phone with me, but other than that,
But that
I
was
didn't
only
get
because
on.
of work, right? In case of an emergency or something.
No, I told them that I'm not accessible.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, it was just for actually to take pictures and post
Oh,
and stuff
sure, sure.
for friends and family.
So how was it?
Um,
How was it being unplugged?
it was nice,
At first, it was
just sitting
probably a
around.
little weird.
You know,
But then when you picked up a hardcover book or you looked at a real magazine instead of reading online.
it would have been nice to relax and be able to read, but
Mhm.
the whole time I was running after my 2-year-old. I had to keep an eye on him because
Yeah.
we're in a state park, so we have
Okay.
our campground area, and there was actually 6 campsites that was all like part of ours because we
Okay.
had 30 people all camping together. And so I'd watch him run,
Not
from
in the
one to the
same
other. And
tent,
as soon
though.
as he right,
That's funny. I just wanted to clarify camping together. You guys, obviously, it wasn't
yeah,
a big tent. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah. Anyway, so I was just constantly running after him,
Mhm.
and being worried about that. And
Oh, yeah.
so it was actually more relaxing to come back to work.
Back to the routine.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it'll get better as your kids get. Well, wait a minute. You just had a new child. So I guess you'll have
Yeah,
that
we
for a
have
few
probably
more
another
years
5 years of
of,
this.
of that. Yeah.
Right, and then it'll start getting better.
Why don't you put those little leashes on them? Those little kid leashes, and give them about 50 feet and
Right.
stake them and just.
It'll probably end up being like a dog where they wrap themselves around something.
Yeah, then you'll get a call
Uh,
from Child Protective Services.
right.
Bunch of leashed children.
Children of the leash.
Yes.
Okay, that's
All
enough of
right.
that. Sorry.
All right. Anyway, so I guess now would be a good time to continue on.
Yes.
I think it would be. So what do we have next?
We have distro news, right?
Okay, yeah.
Here,
Well, we can. Tony, we can have anything that you want to have next.
sweet. Here's the soundbite.
Tony, what's going on with the Linux distributions this week?
And we have to go way back. I made it sound like I was ready, but I haven't even looked at my list yet.
That's pretty shocking. No,
Yeah,
I'm kidding. Well,
What was on 8/6 when our last recording, right?
Yeah.
Or-
so I would just go up to September and refresh.
All right. Let's see. Ubuntu on the 7th, we have Ubuntu 14.04.3 update. So that's the long-term support. They have an update. Um,
Yeah, they did.
so definitely, and then that's also available for Edubuntu and Kubuntu and Lubuntu and Ubuntu Studio and Ubuntu Gnome and
The
Ubuntu Kalen and
Starbuntu, the
right,
Starbuntu family of distros, as we say. So,
exactly. Um, let's see. The next we have is CentOS 6.7. And CentOS, as we all know, is based on Red Hat. So because Red Hat had an update a few weeks ago, then CentOS also did.
mhm.
Oh,
You think CentOS is really driving some of the Red Hat development? I actually would probably say I see more of the CentOS than I do Red Hat out there
I would
because of web hosting.
I wouldn't
oh
be
yeah.
surprised if that's the case.
I always it is pretty much everywhere you go with the preferred platform for web hosting. So
hmm Yeah, I know quite a few of them that'll have a couple Red Hat machines for support,
Mhm.
and then they'll run like the other 1,000 runs off
Yeah.
of CentOS. Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Um,
So they get the support for the two machines, the two Red Hats, and then
and then
they
roll
just
it out.
replicate it across the rest.
exactly.
I guess you say the same for
I
Debian.
suppose.
I mean, Ubuntu's by far the most popular distribution. They're
Mhm.
slowly forking away, but they're Debian based. So
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Also on the 7th, we have Linux Mint 7.2 for KDE and XFCE.
Mm-hmm.
They had, I would say, about a month before this, they had the update for the Cinnamon desktop, and I had done that update, and it seems to work. It's Mint.
Gotta love that minty goodness.
exactly. On the 8th, we have Gparted Live 0.23.0-1.
Mm-hmm.
And as I want to say, as we all know, because we've talked about this one in the past a lot, that it's really good for editing your partitions and stuff. And it's a great project.
I actually use it a lot.
Yeah.
We use it when we're cloning systems.
Oh, okay. You know, I use Parted Magic instead of
That works.
Gparted,
Yeah.
where it has Gparted built into it,
Yeah.
or it's one of the applications, but it has a lot of other stuff, and
Other
it's really
tools.
good for testing because it has a lot of hardware testing built into it too. Yeah.
Which I think is probably important if you're going to be creating partitions. You want to make sure that the underlying physical stuff is in good shape.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like there's a computer I'm working on right now. Is the it's a Windows computer and the hard drive's dying. So I booted into to the
And what were the symptoms? Is it making noises or is it just?
no, actually it was just random files started to be corrupt.
Oh,
So
okay.
I ran a hardware test and it showed hard drive going bad. So then to do the
Mm.
backup, I booted into my Parted Magic
Mm-hmm.
and started backing all the files up to a USB hard drive.
How'd you do that? Was it just DD or did you do
No, just
block by block or did you do
no.
just?
It's a graphical
Okay.
interface. So I just bring up
Mhm.
the file manager in two different windows and drag and drop.
So a Windows or a Linux machine going bad?
Windows.
Yeah.
Old XP machine.
Oh, okay. Well, that
Yeah, I convinced them to get a new computer instead of a new hard drive.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
That's
One of the
good.
things I've liked about Ubuntu is the hard drive warning system. If the hard drive starts developing bad sectors, Ubuntu starts letting you know the hard drive's got an issue.
Oh, really?
And that smart status has been around for like 15 years. Microsoft to this day in Windows 10, if a hard drive is having bad sectors, it just keeps crashing. It doesn't tell you why.
Wow.
That actually just
well, they're not telling you really anything. Not to digress, but even their patches, you
yeah,
know,
they've elected not to tell you what patches are in Windows 10.
yeah,
That's
or
I've
the
seen that article
details.
and I'm like, really? We're not going to learn anymore? It just happened magically.
Right.
Not that anyone ever read them.
It's that whole system's a Trojan horse. So they bring it in. Everybody says, "Oh, it's free, yeah,"
Yes,
and then you open it up and you see, "Wow, here's."
exactly.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll go back to our little
Let's
list.
get back to Linux.
Right.
Yeah,
All
you got
right.
what Slackle?
Yeah, on the 8th, we have Slacko with uh, 4.14.3 KDE Live. And as it sounds like, KDE is the desktop, and it's
Yeah,
Slackware based.
yeah, and I should take another look at that because I know I reviewed it a couple years ago and kind of liked it. But it's a
Yeah,
nice little system, especially if you like Slackware.
right.
Which I remember when I installed Slackware and I actually liked it.
Right.
I had that
Yeah, for a
Slackware
long time,
T-shirt.
everybody's like, "You gotta do
Yeah,
Slackware." Yeah,
and I did, and actually, it's kind of a clean, straightforward distribution.
yeah.
Maybe that's what I'll do with my Kubuntu
I
box at
think
home.
I think the Debian based and the Red Hat based ones are, or I guess you would say Fedora based. They're so popular that some of these other ones,
Get forgotten
just
about.
yeah, they get
Kind of
forgotten
struggle
or
for
pushed back, and
recognition. Yeah,
yeah,
I know. I'm really in the Debian camp. I
I
just apt-get.
Yeah, I'm so used to apt-get. That's why
Yeah, I
all my
love it.
servers at my office, all of them are built. The virtualization system and every subsystem under it, everything's Debian.
Hmm.
right.
Yeah,
It just works. I've never had problems with it. It's just been a great product for me. So
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm the same way. You know, my thought is that it works for me, and I'm happy with it. And if I'm not having to support the 5 different version of Linux, then why do I really need to learn it at this point?
Hmm.
Not that I'm trying to avoid learning things. I'm learning all sorts of stuff with work. It's just
Well, you have to
that's
prioritize
more
what you're
important,
learning.
Well,
right?
Yeah.
And with
So
kids and stuff, I don't have time to sit down and spend 5 hours every other week
and
to.
I don't have kids, and I can't afford to spend.
the stability matters to me because production. We're running this at my business. This is my entire business. The back end is run on Debian, and I just have some Ubuntu machines on the front end for the GUI and interface. So I can't afford to play with something and have a dependency break that I'm in unfamiliar territory because our job isn't running Linux servers. Linux servers run our job.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Cool. All right. On the 8th, we have XDEX uh, 15.3 LXQT.
Yeah, one thing I did check into this because I'm contemplating doing another review. I did one about 3 years ago on it, and what they um, what they did on this one, he used to release a version also that had, or at least you could get GNOME on there, GNOME,
Yeah.
um, and he's now abandoned it. He said uh, the reason why is that at least on his distro is that GNOME 3.14 won't run together with NVIDIA's proprietary drivers, and he puts those on there.
Hmm.
And so there's some kind of a conflict that I don't think he wanted to spend time working out. So
Right.
so this version now is the first one without it. So
All right.
yeah, but he's got quite a few other desktops on there. I mean, I don't know if you saw, he's got that, was it not LXQT? What was it? Yeah,
Right.
LXQT,
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
QT port of LXDE.
You know, if I was to run a distro, I would have one desktop and say, this is our distro, and have the other ones available to be installed. Like if you want another desktop instead, then you can still run my distro. It's just here's the other desktops, through an apt-get.
Ye-
Mm,
Well, that becomes
well,
very complicated, and I looked into that a little bit. Like, how much? Why is Kubuntu supposed to be an entire separate spin versus why can't I
mhm.
just install Plasma Desktop for my Ubuntu version?
Well, you can,
In it, I read the instructions for that.
but
Yeah,
I
it's
did
a
that
book.
once. Yeah.
There's so many nuances to it. And I just didn't realize this myself, but I was curious about it when I was trying to figure out some of the problems with it. And someone had an entire in-depth work instruction on how you can even put these on there. But then it's a whole nother thing to get them to play nice together, to where
Oh,
you can just drop in there. Because in the early days, I remember like 10 years ago, you could just hit the pull down on the login, and Red Hat had this, so you could choose your interface when you logged in.
yeah.
That was a really easy thing to add. Now they've become so in depth each KDE versus GNOME versus Unity that I guess there's not an easy way just to jump between them.
Oh well, there
Mm.
is in FreeBSD. I didn't know if you guys knew that, and it's by extension, it's come into PCBSD. They now support. They've got GNOME, they've got
Oh,
KDE, they've got the Lumina desktop, which is going to be the native desktop for PCBSD. They're bringing in some of the more tiling file managers, not file managers, tiling desktop managers, or window managers too, like Awesome, i3, even Rat Poison. You remember Rat Poison a few years ago?
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
did a review. Oh my god, it was like a rat poison too. But anyway, so I was pretty impressed with what they're bringing in. And I want to say LXDE, but I'd have to go back and take a look, just
Hmm.
so I wouldn't be a liar on that. But,
Yeah.
so, but I think maybe that may be a little when you talk about a BSD versus Linux, where BSD is the complete system, where Linux
yeah.
is, you've got a variety of groups working on the kernel, or not working on the kernel, but putting their stuff, hooking it up to the
Right.
kernel and all of that. I think maybe that's why it is the way it is. So,
All right, cool. So there's another. There's the next on our list. I don't remember seeing it before, and usually the first time I see Linux with an interesting name, I always screw it up. You just passed it.
I know I did. No,
Oh, okay.
what I was going to do is actually I was going to do a quick check and see if
Well, so I think it's Barwa, Baruwa,
Barua,
Barwa
Barua. I'm going to
Enterprise.
borrow a cup of sugar.
Right. Barwa Enterprise Linux
Hmm
6.7.
Yeah, it is their first time on,
Okay. Yeah. So
so we should
and
have like a little cheer or some little
yay.
champagne popping or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Um, and so this is a commercial distribution created from Red Hat. So 6.7 because Red Hat had a 6.7 release. Um, and but they say they focus on a number of security features and designs to protect email and networks from malicious software and spam. So it looks interesting.
hmm
Yeah. So check that out.
Yep. And Tails.
Yeah, Tails 1.5. Um,
I
uh,
you know
I
I haven't. I was going to say something about them because they had gotten there was some press out recently that just as far as the Tor network and some of the other
yeah.
anonymizing tools that are available and whether they're truly anonymizing and whether um, it just seems to
Right.
me these guys are probably working overtime to try to
Right. No,
maintain the integrity of their distribution, at least from
yeah.
its premise.
And yeah, and I agree. And that's the problem is that I don't like to badmouth um distros and stuff.
Because people
But
work
this
hard
is one
to.
because of Tor. I just don't
Hmm
suggest it anymore. Because Tor really. I mean, if you're looking for something, you shouldn't be online at all. If you're looking
hmm
for be anonymous, and so Tails or in Tor just really doesn't give you the an anonymity that you're looking for.
hmm
Yeah, I think that's an issue. Is too many people just assume Tor is anonymous, and there's been some more research projects related to Tor and trying to come up with it. But the reality is the internet wasn't designed to be anonymous from the get go, so
Right.
that's an inherent problem.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next up is Bodhi Linux 3.1.0,
hmm
and they say it's the first with the is it the Mashta desktop
it's moksha.
Moksha.
Yeah, and that's actually it's a Sanskrit word,
Hmm.
which means emancipation, liberation, or release.
Oh yeah,
Probably from I don't know what, but anyway, yeah. So it I guess they don't really characterize it as a fork of the Enlightenment 17 desktop, but it's they call it a continuation. So they've um, backported bug fixes and features um, from future Enlightenment releases, and then the removal of half finished or broken things that
cool.
E17 had. So I guess what they're trying to do is get rid of the cruft and just kind of polish it up. And
Yeah,
so,
that's a that's actually a pretty good uh I don't know, not play on words, but I don't know what to say. Another word that means that it's
a release.
synonym
Yeah.
for enlightenment and moksha because
Oh
liberation and
yeah.
release, like
hmm
and being enlightened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So and it makes sense, in light of what they've done to it. So I think it'll be an interesting desktop to take a look at. And then people, well, what'll also be, I'll be curious to see if for other distros that run E17, assuming that those little unfinished things and issues that it has are across the board, whether people then will start to perhaps use this desktop,
Yeah.
or maybe it'll end up going back to E17, for fixing upstream there. So I guess we'll see.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Next on the list on the 12th, we have Kali Linux 2.0, and they are forensics and security based or focused based on Debian.
Yeah, and actually, Tom and I were talking about this earlier.
They are the distro choice for Mr. Robot.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That is one of the cool shows that it's not just screenshots; they're actually in
In
a live
terminals,
system
man.
running.
Yeah, they're really doing real stuff.
Yeah, when they show that the tools are real, like Deep Sound. I don't know if you've seen where he was using Deep Sound. Not no spoilers here. Any of the exploits or hacks he does, he records an audio CD. Now, if you put this audio CD in a car, because someone right away pointed out, well, what if you just played these audio CDs? Don't worry, they covered that in the show. They
Yeah.
would play. They would play like a regular audio CD. Then you run a program called Deep Sound, freely available to download. And if you run Deep Sound, you have all your files hidden within the audio files.
Ah,
So it's a hidden in plain sight tool.
huh.
Like like steganography.
Right. It's steganography for audio.
For audio.
I'm sure
So,
there's a word for it, but
no, but
and when they show him, because
Mhm.
that actually Deep Sound runs in Windows, for example, they have a scene where they show him opening up a Windows virtual machine, mounting the share, and getting the files after he then inside Windows runs Deep Sound, then does that. They actually had the actors go through the steps needed to do that instead of recording screens. The writer said it gets them more involved.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The actors who admittedly, of course, we always they play it off well as you get the perception that he's an amazing computer guy, and he's like, nope, I learned some typing to learn do this to do this gig.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Oh, that I had never heard of Deep Sound.
It's really I actually hadn't heard of it either. Conceptually, it makes sense that you could do steganography inside of there,
Sure.
but really neat. I mean, they
I wonder how much
demo
it
in the show.
changes the size of that file by very little, or
Yeah, I don't know what levels of
You know, it's-
detection you could do
because if
on
you can
there.
do what's it called where you take a
MD5.
yeah an
hashes.
MD5 hash. That's what it
Right.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's well, if it's an audio CD, then it's unlikely you're gonna have the MD5 hash of the CD or the
Yeah.
sound, the music beforehand.
Right. And
Mhm.
audio CDs, you only get 80 minutes of audio. It's really not a lot of songs. So a CD being full with a few songs on it, it's not you. It would be glossed over pretty quickly. I don't know how detectable it is that there's actually something else in the CD.
I'm sure
Right.
people were taking notes at home.
Or I would say more likely it's very common for a CD to be half full and be considered a
Yeah.
regular audio CD. So then you can fill the other half with data that's hidden in there. Yeah.
Definitely pretty neat.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty
some
cool.
of the encryption tools do use things like that. For example, I use Lux encryption for all of my backups and things like that. It looks like noise when you look at the hard drive.
Huh.
And I always like that. So
Mhm.
there's not a way to identify really even what encryption I use. So if you didn't know I said that, you wouldn't know. And the way the key files work, they see it as a random noise. And a lot of the encryption works that way to make it really hard to identify even what versions or anything on there. So it doesn't give them a point of entry.
Yeah.
No wonder the NSA has to build that huge data center in
Yes.
Utah. They need all
Right.
those. They need that acreage of computers to
For hard drives full
hack.
of
Yeah.
static. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
Uh,
what it looks like essentially, and I've been using it on my systems for a while.
Mhm.
The only downside is anytime there's a power failure in any of my systems to reboot, I have to unlock the RAID arrays because they're Lux encrypted. It does have that disadvantage, and there's no way around it if I keep the password offsite. So I
Sure.
have to log in one system and put the password into it to pull it across. And if I automate it, then I defeat the whole purpose of encrypting it.
exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in the show we're talking about, Mr. Robot, if you're not familiar with it, it's on AMC. And what
USA
are they about?
Networks. Is
10
it
episodes?
USA Networks?
Oh no, you're right. Yeah, USA Network.
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch it online.
They're about 10 episodes in, right? Or
Yeah, but
something.
you can. Yeah, but Tom's right. You can also watch it online. And what I
know-
do is I bring it up in my Chrome browser, and then I Chromecast it down to my TV.
Oh, cool.
So that's how
They're all
that's how I
on
watch it.
online,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
oh, I knew the first one was. I didn't know the rest were.
Yeah,
That's
Thus
cool.
the death of cable.
Yes, the cable. Well, they realize their audience for this are probably people who cut the cord. I haven't had cable TV.
You know,
since
that's a great
2000.
point. Because
Yeah,
I was just thinking about that.
I cut the cord like 4 or 5 years ago, so we don't watch cable.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool.
All right.
All right. Yeah. So
Okay, when we
check
last
out
talked
that-
about distros,
Yeah. Let's
Right.
finish that. We can
Let's
actually
get
get
back
back
on,
to the topic,
yeah.
but yeah.
so we'll kind of whip through some of these.
Yeah, just quick UCS, or the Intervention Corporate Server 4.0-3 was released. On the 13th is another version of Robo Linux 8.1,
Yeah.
the Mate version. Oh, there's a
Hey,
free.
speaking of Mate, yesterday I did when I was trying to get my system up and running. I still had that Ubuntu Mate that disk that I had reviewed.
Oh
I
yeah.
had it, so I fired it up, and I tell you that looked so nice on the monitors, and I just thought maybe I should maybe I should get away from Ubuntu and try that.
Hey,
But anyway, so go ahead. Sorry.
no problem. There's a BSD released. Free
Yes.
BSD 10.2 was released, and that's what you're talking about. You did an update on your system,
Yes, I did.
right?
I updated to 10.2, and then that kind of fixed all my little problems I had.
Cool. Uh, on the 15th, we have KOS 15 or 2015.08.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
there's a Manga or Linux Mega Co. They were released on the 16th.
Mon- uh, let me
Manganga.
help you out with that.
Yeah, Manganga. No,
Mangaka.
Mangaka. All right.
Yeah. So it's it's for that kind of not cartoon, but that anime manga.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that's what they focus on. So
All right. PF Sense or no, not PF Sense. IP Fire
mhm.
2.17 had an update on the 17th. There's the core update 93. So if you're running IP Fire, do updates.
Yeah. Yep.
PCBSD 10.2 released on the 21st.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say now, because I had problems updating to the previous version from the version before that. I could never get my little icon to show that it was updated. Now take a look at it, the green check mark.
Yeah. Shows
So
updated.
it's rocking now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right. And last on our list is Q4OS 1.2.8.
hmm
And they're running the Trinity desktop.
yeah, they are. Which looks remarkably like KDE3.
Yeah.
So all
All
right.
right.
So good. Got through that. So must be
Time for the top 5 of the last week,
last 7 days.
last 7 days.
What do we got?
And we have at number 5 is OpenSUSE with 1238.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, and it's trending up.
yeah. Number 4 is Manjaro with 1510.
Yeah, that's trending up too.
Yeah. Number 3 is Ubuntu with 1516.
Yep, and that's holding steady.
And number 2 is Debian with 2213.
Wow, Debian is trending up too.
Yeah. And in the number 1 spot is Mint with
Yep.
3084.
Yeah, that's trending up.
Yeah.
Boy, I tell you, look at that. The top three are Debian based distros. Well, one is Debian itself. And my little PC BSD is actually FreeBSD is 21 on the list.
Trending down.
I wasn't gonna I wasn't gonna mention that, Tom, but yes, you are correct.
All
And
right.
then, but I'm happy to say PCBSD is coming in at a strong 33, and it's trending up at 391. So I do in some part to the its recent release. So
Yeah. All right.
hey,
What's up next?
next, well, I think we were going to actually I had originally planned to take a look at a couple of distros. I had Pink Rabbit Linux, which I had found it was a recent submission to DistroWatch, and my plan, because I had downloaded it and put it on a CD, it presents itself as a series of scripts that will enable you to build your own distro. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, when I download this thing and I take a look at it, I'll see probably a folder with some scripts that you run that will allow you to, it'll pull whatever files, blah, 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 and you end up with a nice little distro that you have built from scratch. But it didn't really seem to be the case when I downloaded it. I had the ISO file, and um, I installed it on one of my PCs at home, and it's basically an LXDE environment, and there are really no instructions out on, I think it was on SourceForge. No real instructions. It hasn't been updated since June, so it's still fairly recent.
Yeah.
But I think it makes some presumptions as far as the user goes, that they know where to go get some scripts, probably out to, maybe you go out to Linux from scratch and just kind of go through the book and you do it off this using
Right.
this particular environment. So yeah, so it's pretty basic. I mean, there's really, you know how Matt used to say, if it doesn't have an Office Manager, it's not a distro, or it's
Or
not a
Office
desktop.
Suite, yeah.
Yeah, so there's no Office Suite on there. It's just
Very
very
barren.
bare bones. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that was a little disappointing. And then I thought, I'm going to get off the beaten path and take a look at. There's a Linux audio CD. Have you ever heard of KX Studio?
No.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting, and I had downloaded it and burned it to CD and installed it and started writing my review of it. And then I thought, while I do this, I'm going to upgrade my desktop,
Oh
and that's
no.
why then things kind of fell apart. So I never really had a chance to go in and do a proper review of this. But just looking at all of
Wow.
the yeah, exactly, all of the various audio tools that are available, I was favorably impressed with it.
I mean, this looks like a full blown
Yeah, it's
audio
audio.
editing suite.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's KX Studio.
That's impressive.
And you can find that at kxstudio.linuxaudio.org. It did look very impressive, and I was going to go in and, I mean, one of my favorite drum kit app in there, Hydrogen. I mean, that's there.
Yeah, no,
That's
there's
cool.
this is pretty extensive.
Mhm.
I was thinking it was something simple like Audacity, like another, editing tool, but this is a creation tool.
Yeah, it's got Audacity in there. It's
Yeah.
got, everything.
That's great.
So
I wonder, does it have Q Tractor? I wonder. I'm trying to look.
um
Is
under
this an
application,
application or is this a distro?
this is a
This is a full
distro.
distro, yeah.
Oh
it's a
yeah, I
full-blown-
installed it.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
I was thinking it was an application. It's an entire.
it's an entire distro.
That's even.
I
cooler.
and I ins- yeah, and it installed with no problems. As a matter of fact, when you install it, what I liked about it is that it took the Ubuntu install and it replaced the branding and logos with its own. And when a distro does that, it shows little extra steps. It
Yeah.
tells me that those guys know what they're doing, well, at least as far as brand replacement goes.
I'm
But
looking at all the applications. I was looking. I didn't realize. I thought I was just looking at screenshots of it, but I'm looking at the applications that it all comes integrated with. But this is still. It's a full blown audio production distribution.
mhm.
Yeah.
It looks like studio level stuff in here.
yeah,
Yeah, it does have Q Tractor.
it does.
Yeah. I might look at using this for our editing tools because the one that we have right now, it's kind of getting long in the tooth.
Is it?
Yeah.
So what are
So
you using right now?
it's
Not Audacity.
well, I'm using Q Tractor, but it's
oh,
a
okay.
VM that
Oh yeah, that you had gotten
Podnets guys
from.
set up and
Yeah.
I got from them. It works. It actually works really good. So I don't want to break something, but just to mess
Try
around
it.
with another VM, I'm not really going to break my previous
Yeah.
setup. So I might look at that.
Yeah, well, and check and see the version difference. Q Tractor and what you're currently using versus this version. So if it's a couple of points newer, might
Yeah.
be worth it. So
Yeah, very cool.
yeah. So unfortunately, I would have had a more in-depth review of it, but technology glitches got in the
Yeah,
way. So.
right.
But anyway, yeah. So check it out, KX Studio
That's definitely neat.
at linuxaudio.org. So.
Very cool. Thanks, Mary.
You're welcome. I jammed two in there.
Yeah.
Although
What
Pink
was
Rabbit,
the name of that first? Oh, Pink Rabbit.
Pink Rabbit Linux.
That sounds interesting.
Well, what caught my attention was just the name because I just saw myriad jokes I could.
Right.
And then I looked at it and I thought, well, shoot, this is really bare bones. I'm gonna do something else because I didn't want to sit around and try to build another distro as a review of a distro.
Oh
So
yeah.
that might be a meta distro review or something. I don't know. But anyway, this one, KX Studio looked much more fun.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you, Mary.
you're welcome.
So I guess we're going on to the news for the week.
I think we are.
Tech news.
It's time for the tech news of the week.
And Tom, do you want to start us off?
Sure. It's a combination of Linux news slash kernel news is Linus spoke at LinuxCon.
Mm.
So
I saw that.
yes, he had took a realistic approach to security. Just like, but you'll never fix all the bugs. There's always going to be bugs. He's just they people had some mixed reviews about it, but he's just being realistic. And he talked about in depth how the kernel has been so solid. So in reality, is all these different exploits like Heartbleed have all been applications, not in the kernel level. He talks about how his process keeps people from submitting poor code to the kernel to keep things really good. He also spoke of the Internet of Things, IoT, or as I call it,
Mhm.
Internet of Targets.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff in there, but they were talking about, he says, the kernel will never be as lean as it was, in the beginning, but they're trying to keep it very lean so they can be the adopted tool, Linux, for all of these Internet of Things. We have seen some crazy security exploits. The majority of the ones we've seen, though, like if you've seen the light bulb hacking, where they could hack your own network via your automated light bulbs last year.
Speaking of that, did you guys see the article? And I think it was yesterday, and I can't remember where I saw it, but apparently somebody had hacked a refrigerator, so it was sending spam.
Yes,
Really? That's funny.
Yeah, and of course there's a joke in there. It's spam.
It is spam.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But security
Uh.
being minded on these, a lot of it is we've seen is implementation problems because we've got the hurry up to market mentality, and then we contract out to inferior programmers because no one wants to spend any money on that part of it, and then they do
Yeah, it's
poor
non-glamorous.
implementations. Yeah,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
glamorous.
But it's not glamorous when you end up in the news because your product was hacked, and it's quite frankly embarrassing.
He
So,
also
Yeah.
was asked about Docker because that's the buzzword now.
oh yeah.
Um,
What was,
I think what is he doesn't really, he says that we don't load the kernel with buzzwords. Typical thing that he might say. And he says we're an infrastructure play, and I only care about how people use the kernel. That was his answer to Docker about how if they were gonna do some integration on there. I
Oh,
like he
yeah.
says we don't put buzzwords in the kernel.
Right.
So other
And
than that, it was just
and I agree with him though. Is if you start throwing stuff in just because it's a popular app, then that can really bring you problems down the road. But like he's talking that as long as it's infrastructure and this is what's going to be the the yeah
yeah.
for a I don't know, long term, like real good thing to have in there, then I agree.
Right. And Docker seems to be doing just fine. I mean, it's an amazing tool. It's great. If it's, I'm not sure what challenges, but I have a few friends that have their own complaints that they develop with Docker, which I'd like to see if I couldn't get him for an interview. I tell you, he's doing some really neat stuff with Docker.
oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's writing all the scripts it takes for as the load level on their servers. And these servers are global. As the load level builds up on these servers, it actually spins up all the new Docker instances and attaches them to help handle the computing power needed to do
Huh.
this. Works for a major insurance company
Mhm.
developing this, and it's all the tracking
Yeah.
system. And the reason it's global is it's the car tracking systems, like for the data telemetry. So as
okay.
people start their cars, you end up with variable loads based on driving times. So it's a neat system he's developing and implementing, I should say. They're rolling it all out. So
Yeah.
he's in another realm when he starts going off and stuff. But it's really interesting talking to him and breaking down how he developed the project.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's funny on our side. The first thing I thought is that is really cool. It's neat technology in the back end, but every time you start your car, that your insurance company is tracking you
Yes.
and watching what you're doing.
I
It's
will
kinda
pay more
creepy.
not to be tracked.
well,
Yeah.
and it's
That's
funny
my-
too because he's a big open source guy, obviously.
Yeah.
In that dichotomy of I hate what I do, but man, look at this cool thing I made.
Right.
It
Yeah.
can handle all this stuff that I don't wish it handled.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be tracking any of this, but this is my job.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of us kind of live that double. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Robot, he works for a corporation that supports the corporation he hates.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow.
Well,
Yeah. So that covers
Cool.
kernel news and some
news that
yeah. Linus.
Okay.
What was next? Hold on, lost it.
Uh,
Libre Office. You have a topic on there, and then First, we'll talk real quick. LibreOffice has got a new version coming out, and it's going to be Java free. I believe version 501. They're
Mm.
removing their dependency on Java because, well, Java and
because of Java.
yeah, and Larry Ellis and the fact that they're suing everybody. And someone made an infographic of all the people Oracle was suing and all the connections of how
Can you imagine if you're a lawyer
It's
for
a
that
really
company, or
big
you're
infographic.
the outside law firm for them? I mean,
You're happy.
you're just happy. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
I've also heard people say the difference between God and Larry Ellis is God doesn't think he's Larry Ellis. So the stories about the man are amazing. So, and
Mhm.
nonetheless, they're going to be doing it and be going to make it Java free. And you had a country that switched away from
Open Office,
Open
which
Office.
of course, is kind of LibreOffice's
Cousin.
we'll say. And yeah, there was an Italian city actually. What they had a few years ago had migrated away from the traditional Microsoft Office to Open Office due to costs. But now, what has happened is with the Office 365, which is the cloud-based version of Office, and the pricing structure apparently was so was so attractive that they ended up getting rid of open office. And a couple of
Hmm.
the things that they had noted that played a fairly significant role in their decision was, one, they had a lot of macros, Excel macros, that could not really be appropriately translated or at least converted to run in open office. And then also access. I,
Yeah.
now I have developed little applications in Access, and one of the things I liked about it is that it was so self-contained, and I know it had that little Jet, what is
Yeah,
it,
the Jet
but
Direct
in
database.
yeah,
engine.
that little database engine. So it was really a self-contained. When I tried to do something similar in LibreOffice or OpenOffice,
It's not as easy.
it is not as easy. And I think, and so I can understand why they did that. And actually, I posted this article on Google Plus, and it generated a discussion about why people or companies, little departments, shouldn't be allowed to use Access
Yeah.
because what happens is they'll use it to scratch an itch. They've got this data.
And it just spirals out of control.
It grows to the point where Access can't handle it, and then at that point in time, they've got probably bad database design, and then the IT folks have to come in and try to fix it, and then it becomes a mess.
Right.
I-
Or it
Not a
becomes
mess because of the IT folks.
it becomes a critical application that this
Yes.
department's using, and it's not being backed up on server level
Properly.
like
I have
everything
a
else is.
client, we upgraded their computers, and because the guy wrote it into a standalone, and we no longer have the source, and
Mhm.
the person has vanished off the plan, and whoever wrote this for him more than 10 years ago, they have a Windows XP machine they keep in the back room to run, because we making it run on Windows 7 is just too much work. So we have essentially an offline Windows XP machine to keep an archive of all their old records that are in Access in there, because the guy wrote a whole application interface in front end. And because we don't have the back end anymore or any of it, because he compiled it like a standalone file,
Oh.
we can't edit it. We can extract some of the tables out, and we did to import them into QuickBooks to get them off of that into something they can use. But they
Mhm.
have just years of custom data. They'd imported stuff from the 90s in there when they wrote it in like 2001 when they wrote the system, and now it's been in
Ooh.
use for all those years
Yeah.
until they finally switched. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things. And that's exactly what happened. Someone wrote it. It worked really well. The guy did a wonderful job as far as it did all the things they need to do. It's running their company for years, but now it won't run on new computers.
Oh.
There's just no way, and they just didn't want to deal with running it in a VM. They just took an older
Mhm.
computer, had us clean it up, and because it's static, they're not adding new information to it. It sits offline in the back, and it's for lookup purposes.
All right.
That's the solution. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's there's a logical reason not to let your department use Access or use any type of platform like that that doesn't have.
But I loved it.
I got to admit, I
know,
wrote stuff in it before because it was
it's just
so
easy.
Yes.
See, and that's I guess the problem.
Even though I do MySQL and things like that, I would still find it easier years and years ago that I would just grab. I had data sets I needed to organize. I would just use Access to do data mining with it at the
Mhm.
company I worked for at the time. It was just the simplest tool, so quickly could import, export, and and it's funny. I was tying it to a Unix RS 6000 system.
Were you?
Yeah, as I used to
Huh.
admin, and that's
That's
all of our
interesting.
database was written in progress, and I
Mhm.
export the progress, and it actually linked up fine with Access, if you can believe that.
Well, that's
Hmm.
pretty funny.
They
Yeah.
lined up fine, and I could run the queries. It was faster for me to do than it was just because
Yeah.
I could make the reports instantly, tie in some information, and present it to the management without thinking about it.
Mhm.
It was like, you know, you're done.
Hey,
Well, part of the
yeah.
problem too, not turn this into a discussion of access, but I think part of the problem too is that when people set it up, they tend to put their tables and the structure and the data in the same database,
Yes,
where what
and
you
they don't.
really need to do, which would then aid in migration, is to have them kind of separate.
Yeah. Well, and I've
At
also
least.
known like we currently have this because a couple things we didn't think about till later. Our database isn't completely normalized at my office that's written in MySQL because
Oh, okay. Yeah.
we coded everything on the fly. We're
Sure.
in finally we had a meeting with one of my friends who's a developer. And he's excited. It's a
Are you
green
saying
field.
that it's not in third normal form?
Yep, that might be some sections because I would open source it now, but it's such a
Mhm.
mess. But because we're starting it as a greenfield project, we're getting ready to we're going to be open sourcing it. But
Mhm.
we sat down and had our first meeting about structure and everything and how we're going to do it. We don't
Yeah.
have the timetables together yet, but we've got the project set up. We're using Jira for
Sure.
management, and we're putting the project together. We're going to have some timeline released on there. And I'll
Good.
have it as regular updates. Once I'm done, my whole point of sale and customer management system will be 100% open source for the public. We're
Yeah.
published on GitHub and everything. So.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Open
right.
SSH 7 has been released.
Yeah.
Not real big news in there. Mostly what they did was deprecate things. At the compile time, you can add things back in, like support for SSH1, but sorry, they dropped it in the latest version. It's
Mm.
not in there by default. They also did some aliasing to fix some confusion of root login. I
Mhm.
forget the nuances, but it is confusing when you look at it seems like, wait, it says password root. No, that means no password root. If you're looking at the config file, the default is root can't log in with a password by default, but the way it was always worded in there was
It was
ambiguous.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
And
That's
both
good to-
wordings work now.
Yeah. It's
The,
good to
the
Oh.
new
clear it up.
one, they alias to match the old one, so you can use root not log. I forget the nuances, but nonetheless, it works. But they mostly started stripping out, and which is a good thing. 'Cause that's what like some of the Libre SSL has done
Yeah.
to avoid the problems. They're like, why is all this legacy code in here? And
Mhm.
well, why would we take it out? There's always what someone asked, and someone said we're taking it out. So this release appears to be less about features and more about they added
Cleaning it up.
more options for encryption. So there is more and higher levels of encryption that are supported. Not that the ones now are broken or should be deprecated, but you can go a little further up in there. But the you'll is like, let's remove it all.
Mhm.
And while we were away on August 15th, 1997, GNOME was founded. So happy 18th birthday, GNOME. It's 18 years old for the GNOME desktop.
Hey.
No.
18 years.
Wow.
18 years. It's hard to believe that's been around that long.
It's an adult now.
It's an adult.
It can drink.
GNOME
Or
has
no,
come
it
of
can't
age.
drink. How old do you have to
No.
be to drink? 18?
21.
Okay.
Or if you're in Canada, you can
can
drink at 19.
Okay.
If you're the rumor is if you're in Germany, if you can see over the bar, they'll serve you.
Okay. Well, when I was growing up, they had temporarily lowered the age to 18 in Michigan.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
It
I
was
remember
for a
that
little
for a
while.
lot. Yeah, I took advantage of it. Well, speaking of Canada, I'm going to go to Toronto next weekend by train.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. I've
Yeah.
done that
Have
quite a few
you done it?
times.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I don't know from here when I did it, like, because we live, or I'm about 15 miles from the Canadian border,
Mhm.
so it's easier to drive across the border.
That's
and
what we're
then
doing
Get on the train
in Windsor,
in Windsor,
Ontario, and then just take it over.
because there's no train that goes straight from Detroit across. You have
No.
to you have to go up to Port Huron, which is
Okay.
the next above. Then that train goes across.
Okay.
So I've done it twice, or both ways. When I
Mhm.
lived in Battle Creek, the train went from Battle Creek up through Port Huron, then
Yeah.
across to Toronto.
Yeah.
And then the other ways I've done it from
Windsor?
Windsor.
Yeah.
And it's nice. I mean, the drive itself, if you just drive to Toronto, it's not bad, but it's fun taking the train.
Yeah, we're gonna go watch a baseball game.
Yeah.
And then they've got a Busker Fest, street performer festival. So it's going to be
Cool.
kind of crazy. I hope the weather's nice.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, I kind of got us off track.
That's
That's
all right.
good stuff.
Any-
Mr. WinPress set a trend by announcing he was not going to integrate the software center into Ubuntu Mate.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mentioned that this
And
summer.
in the announcement, and PC World had an article that says Ubuntu is killing off the software center.
Oh,
A little bit of a grabber of a headline, but it looks like, if I understood everything I read, that they're going to be removing like the paid apps and things like that. I don't think it really was well supported or in use much,
mhm.
so they're kind of letting it wither. But Snappy's not going to come till apparently is maybe 2018. So we have a few year between where I don't know what's going to happen. The software center, I guess, will be there, but I think they're dropping in some of the next versions the paid app support,
Mhm.
where you had to create a canonical sign in order to purchase the apps. And some of the apps, even though they were free, required canonical sign in. Someone had mentioned Steam was one of them, and a couple other I see them around a list in the
Mhm.
comments. I'm not sure what happens to those people, but of course, the reply to most of those comments was apt-get install, and that solves the
Yeah,
problem because
yeah.
they were
That's
free
what.
apps that you could download, but for whatever reason, they wanted a login for them. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that tie-in was for.
Yeah, I didn't. I remember that, and I look at that software center. I mean, it was. I think for somebody who's brand new, it helps them kind of see what's there,
Right.
and other distros and even PCBSD has it's got its app cafe, which is very similar to that. Um, so anyway, well, Tom, thank you.
No
Yeah.
problem. Last little piece of news would be the hard drive reliability stats for second quarter 2015 from Backblaze.
Oh yeah, the most recent ones.
I've always loved that Backblaze does this. If you're not familiar, major hosting company, really huge, and so they use consumer drives, not just they don't. They use consumer and combined with enterprise drives. And for any drive they install, they even give you the exact model number of the drive and all the statistics for their failure rates. And in short, do not, under any circumstance, buy a 3 terabyte Seagate Barracuda, which has a 28.2% failure rate.
Wow.
The
Well, let's just say this: if you're going to buy it, just buy a second hard drive
Yes,
Right.
and
and
if
do
you
constant
have one,
backups.
and if you have one, there's a 1 in 4 chance of it failing. Obviously, well,
Ooh.
better than 1 in 4. So you should probably be backing it up and thinking about replacement. The only other drive that has such close on failures is the Seagate 1.5 terabyte, which doesn't surprise me because generally, if you look at how the platter systems and drives are designed, the 1.5 terabyte and the
Mhm.
3 terabyte are usually of the same product line because they simply add the other platters
Oh,
into
sure.
one drive
Okay.
that's and it's double the size. So
Yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
makes sense.
um, the Death Stars are still top on the chart for most reliable drives, only 0.5% failure rate. And they're 3 terabyte as well, so you're not sacrificing space, and they're just as affordable. So thought that was interesting, and something to keep in mind. I always look at that a lot. Is we have to procure a lot of hard drives ourselves for clients' computers, and of course
Mhm.
for our own servers. So I actually use this to make purchase determinations when we built our new RAID server.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, I think it's nice that they did do this, and I'm surprised that other companies don't. I mean, especially when you're running this amount of hard drives, it's great information you can give out. And and the other person that I would think that would, I'm really surprised they haven't done this is Google.
Well,
They run so many hard drives, and it,
Google's sanitized theirs. See, what they published was they won't tell
Mhm.
you what brand drive. They give you drive failure statistics, but they
Mm.
normalize them between all drives. So they won't tell you what drives they're using, which is really, I they and this is years ago. Google started doing that, and I think that's what prompted Backblaze to uh, give all the details right down to the exact model number they do, which is great. Because they don't just tell you because there's obviously nuanced model numbers, and they give you exact model numbers. I wish more companies
right.
would do it for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so the HGST is
I've never heard of
the
them.
one.
But Hitachi Death Star,
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay. I didn't realize that. Okay.
yep.
Because I always like Western Digital, and just as a kind of a
Uh,
general.
didn't Western Digital buy Hitachi now? I'm pretty sure they own them.
Oh, okay. They may have.
I think
I'm
so.
not aware of it.
Yeah.
Well, it says HDST is a Western Digital company.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so
There you
yeah,
go.
Yep.
that makes sense.
It literally this is how I purchased my hard drives. I went in here, I copied the model numbers with the lowest failure, I
No.
pasted it in Amazon and clicked buy now.
Yeah,
That's a great way to do it.
I mean
Yeah.
that's how I pick the reliable hard drives. I don't do the research myself. I just go to this webpage and look at those failure rates, and that's
No,
how we
that's a
make our
great.
purchases.
That's a great way to do it.
yeah.
It's a great way to do
Yeah.
it.
Because some people just click on lowest price, and I'm not. No,
No,
I don't need the headache.
I don't. Yeah,
And the price
lowest
Right.
range in
prices.
hard drives is sometimes $8, $9. They're so competitively priced. Yeah,
Well, especially if you're looking at the Seagate numbers. I mean, they may be a few dollars lower, but then you
but
got to
that
deal with
28% failure rate.
that's just horrendous.
That's yeah.
Horrendous.
I heard this
Yeah.
from the recovery people we deal with that the Seagates were really really bad drives.
Are they?
They told me that.
I have two. Well, these are I think 1 terabyte drives. So I don't know how they fared, but
Mhm.
I don't use them much. But I'm well aware of that, so I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
back up the stuff I have on it. So all right. So thanks for that news.
Yeah,
You have any news, Tony?
I did. I have found a couple.
Okay.
We were talking shortly. You had mentioned Tom had mentioned the Libre SSL, and that's like
Mhm.
the rewrite or the
Yeah.
of SSL, and or no, it's not the rewrite. What do you call it? The fork of SSL
Fork.
under
That'd
the
be- yeah.
under the BSD license,
Mhm.
and Amazon has gone through and recreated their own SSL, where it's significantly it's like 10% of the code lines of code
Yep.
to what SSL has, because there's so much old stuff, just like you're saying with SSH, that there's a lot of
Yeah.
old stuff.
They got rid of the CRUF and it's amazingly small, which of course makes a code audit almost arbitrary by comparison. When you're talking about
Mhm.
only using 10% of the original code,
Oh
that's
yeah.
not just a fork.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a knife. It is cut it out.
Exactly. And I mean, Amazon isn't just a a place to
Mhm.
buy stuff online. Hold on, let's take a break.
All right. We'll do a little cut. Thinking about minute 17 or something. I mean, an hour 17.
Hour 17.
Yeah.
Now we got to get down to the end here.
Yeah.
'Cause I want to talk about this hidden tear. It's interesting.
The hidden terror. I didn't see. I have not even looked at that.
Once you get, and that's once your computer breaks, you lose all focus here.
I just saw yeah, and then this was an endless loop of updates, which as you know, I had to
Yes.
back out and then do it in two, which did fine. I don't know what's wrong with PCBSD's update feature, but I had to resort to the command line, which I got to tell
Yeah.
you, sometimes the command line just gets stuff done.
Yes. That's an important part of it. No, I
Yeah.
had the same thing when I had some issues with mine. It's
Mhm.
breaking out the command line and ripping
Yeah.
through it. I got to admit, this last version of Ubuntu was boring to install because it just worked, with the exception of the multiple monitor problem.
Yeah.
But literally, unplug monitors, finish setup, plug monitors in once it booted in,
Yeah.
set monitors. That's it. I haven't had to do no special config editing. Now, in previous versions of Ubuntu, because of my video editing, I've
Mhm.
had issues.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons I didn't do an in-place upgrade. I had copied and moved so many libraries around. I have no idea why they did this, but the encoding that is in my Canon camera that shoots my video is incompatible with the previous version of Ubuntu I was using.
Hmm.
And apparently they decided to use, just for that version of Ubuntu, some different libraries. And they realized because it broke so many things, they switched
They
back
had to go
at the
back,
new
yeah.
versions.
Well,
So what I
yeah.
had done was used apt pinning and broke all kinds of stuff, which is
Oh,
so I could
mhm.
pull different versions of libraries so I could make my system work. And which it just created all those annoyances. And whenever I've done that in the past, if I do an in-place upgrade, it seems to break stuff because it finds things like, oh, you must want this custom stuff. No, I really want it just to work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Those little hoops. Hey, I was going to mention too. Here's the different window managers and desktops you can put in here.
Wow,
PCBSD. They've got quite
that is
awesome.
a really nice list on there.
IceWM,
Wow.
Rat Poison, XFC, plus GNOME i3, which is a nice little one. Enlightenment.
Yeah,
So
definitely nice.
they got
All right, where we leave off.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry about that, you guys.
No, that's all right. It was at 117, I think, an hour 17 where you had to leave.
So we can trim
So
that.
yeah, so that we'll just cut that out, and it'll be on YouTube, but our polished finished product won't have it
Yeah,
if you remember to do it.
Well,
I
do the
will.
editing. I'll help with that. So.
I'm kidding.
but in the YouTube video,
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
Oh yeah. Well, we know it well, but that's okay.
Yeah. So the Amazon thing is as they're saying, that it's not just a web store that you can go buy things and watch videos and stuff. They're a huge web services company also.
Yes, and my friend who's doing all the Docker implementations, the only system that they really found that would work scalable enough for what they need to do globally was AWS. So
Yeah.
Amazon Web Services is what they're using on the back end for that.
Well,
Yeah.
and all three of us, I'm sure, have used S3 or some other aspect of
Their storage is
web
amazing.
services.
Their Glacier system, which
Oh
is
yeah,
their
I've got
slow.
I've got stuff sitting in there.
Yeah,
You don't need it back right away. A few hours.
Yep.
Glacier is cheap.
yeah. You know, I should probably put together. There's some really good Linux front ends for Glacier too.
Yeah.
For pre-encrypting, because you don't know what they're going to do with the data when it's there, but you can pre-encrypt and back up entire massive amounts of data. You know, it's great for, as it sounds, cold storage, where you don't need immediate access to download it back, but you need a large repository because you're like, if a plane lands on this building, it'll take all my RAID arrays out with it.
Right. Yeah,
Mm.
and that's not just a joke. You are pretty close to an airport there.
I am pretty close to the airport, so that's my favorite example.
Yeah.
I used to work right next to the airport, and 15 years ago, outside storage, we had a 1.5 meg circuit. We could not do offsite storage easily, so we had a series of very large fire safes that we kept things in because a plane landing on the building. We were actually really close to where that plane crash happened at the freeway.
Oh
that was
yeah,
right by
yeah.
our
yeah.
building.
Okay, way back when.
Way back when.
That was what, 87, I think.
87.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Wow.
I wasn't even living here then. I was in Minnesota, but I remember it.
My house at the time was close enough that I heard it.
Really? Wow. My
Yeah.
my father-in-law
Must've
is
been
a
shocking.
police officer in Taylor, and it's a neighboring community, and he was one of the
First
on the
responders.
crew for cleaning up, and
Oh,
yeah,
must have been
he said,
awful.
yeah, it was pretty bad. Because what is it? Everybody died, but
One
but a
girl.
The
little
little
baby.
girl.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
She's part of a documentary now.
yeah.
Okay, well,
Um,
let's we're gonna trend upwards now in our
Yep.
mood.
That's right. I had a thing that's not really open source or Linux related, just
Then why are
looked
we gonna
really
talk
cool to
about
me
it? No, just
because
kidding.
it looked
Yeah.
cool. This is the world's first fully solar powered airport is now available,
Yes.
and that's in India.
Very cool.
Oh.
And what they did is they have it's powered by a 12 megawatt uh, solar plant
Uh-huh.
that is put together with 46,150 solar panels.
Wow.
Yeah, it's staggered out, within like 45 acres, all around the
Sure.
airport. There's some pretty cool pictures of the whole array of solar panels and stuff. And,
I really like hearing about those kinds of things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's progressing really fast that way. I think Germany is at 51%. I think they crossed the 50% threshold for renewable energy.
Hmm.
yeah,
So there's a lot of places are moving that way, which is great.
And speaking of that kind of energy, I don't have the article with me, but it just caused me to remember seeing this. There's some kind of test going on. I think it's in Britain. They've got one lane that is set up for some kind of low level charge where you drive over
Yes.
it and it charges your
While
car
you go.
while you drive.
really,
And the lane is colored green. And so yeah, so they're testing it right now.
that's really cool.
I mean, just think about it. You might never have to plug your car in.
Yeah.
So
Where was that?
this is? I think it was in Britain. I think
Yeah, I forget where
it's
they're
called
saying.
low. Was it low emission or low something?
Oh yeah, kind of like the carpool lanes,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
for low
but it was
emission or
yeah, but
low
and the pavement
electric.
was green, and so when
Hmm.
you drive over it, it basically recharges your car.
Yeah,
Pretty neat.
that's neat. Again, a neat technology, but kind of creepy because you think of how much electrical magnetic
Yes.
radiation's coming off of that cement to be able to charge your car.
I hold a lot of radiation in my head a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, wait till that coronal mass ejection occurs.
Right.
We'll be back in the Stone Age. No, just kidding. All right.
All right. Um, so that's like regular news. That's all I had. I had a few
Mhm.
things for security bits,
Do you
but
want to do the tips and tricks real quick?
Yeah, let's do that really quick.
all right.
I have a couple of it's
You mean
actually a
your-
couple of trick apps.
Your KDE corner, Mary?
Oh, I got that too, but
Oh.
I've just got one little comment on KDE Corner, and we can jump into that. I just wanted to mention that Caden Live was part of Google's 2015 Summer of Code, and Tom and I are big fans of
Yes,
Caden
Caden
Live.
Live is wonderful.
And what they did this past summer is work on improving the keyframe. Um, Caden Live had support for two keyframe types. There were simple keyframes and geometry keyframes. And keyframes, for those of you who are not aware, I think when you're rendering some kind of an animation, you sort of a start point and a stop point,
Yes.
and the progress through that. Tom, you probably know a little more about it.
Yeah,
You
you saw,
that
yeah,
way.
pretty much. We won't get too in depth
Yeah.
in it, so we won't get too technical.
Yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, so what they did, what this Caden Live developer did, is he created a keyframe animation widget, which now supports all forms of interpolation, including discrete, linear, smooth, blah blah blah, and the mix of the three. So that's kind of cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that in Caden Live.
More stuff to play with.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so that's my KDE corner. Tony, back to you.
All right. I think Tom had some tip.
Yeah, a couple of them. One of them I found is really cool. I discovered this. It's ASCIINEMA. And I believe it's supposed to be like ASCII Cinema. But what you have here is a really, really slick tool. So if I want to share a command line tool, and it's a single standalone executable you can download to run this, you open up a shell. I run this tool. It spawns its own shell. I type in a series of commands, and when I'm done, I type the word exit. It creates and uploads a video that I can then share with a unique URL right on their website.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So if I need to share something with friends, and I do this in IRC a lot, I'm usually just dropping things in the paste bin going type this. But because this is recording the shell, it actually creates and it shows the results as it's going into a video on the fly. And it's really, really simple. It's like a no-brainer to use. It's cross-platform. It even supports Mac, so it goes outside the Linux world too.
Wow.
BSD, whatever you want to run on there. But then you can take and embed these if you're creating this. And I haven't done this, but I might look at embedding some of them in my website, for example, when I do my blog post. If I'm talking about command line, instead of just showing a screenshot of it, I can actually show me typing the command. You can see the outputs and me doing the Q&A responses. But they just make it so easy to use. It on the fly creates unique URL, and you don't need an account to do this. It actually does. It creates unique URL without any account. And if you want an account, so you can create a collection of your own on there, you can do it. Plus, they've created essentially such a repository, because if you check a box, if you're logged in, you can make everything public. You can. They now have a repository of things you can search and watch people how they do it from the command line.
Oh, that's cool.
So definitely a neat little system, and it's free. There's no. They appear to have sponsorship from another company that pays for all the hosting and keeps the product free, but it's open source as well.
What's it called again?
I have it in the show. We'll have it in the show notes, and it's ASCIINEMA.org. I'm pronouncing it like ASCII Cinema, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's really a neat one. And with me building new servers, I wanted to make sure I had a good bare metal restore. So I wanted to try Relax and Recover. I've heard good things about it from other friends that have used it. So far, other than having some issues with Debian 9, which I got to open a bug report for, it works really well. Super simple to install. And what Relax and Recover does, it's got a few different options. It's going to create a bare metal, if your hard drive goes bad, restore point for your system. It can support creating an ISO that's bootable that automatically reinstalls, or a bootable USB, which is what I opted for. I don't have a CD-ROM in my servers because why?
Right.
But so you create these bootable USBs, and it does it in place running, so you don't even have to shut down the server. In place, creates an archive, creates all the necessary boot tools on there, and then you can just boot off of that USB later and restore your operating system.
Wow.
Really simple. It supports being updated incrementally. So as you load updates to your machine, you go, I don't want to have to run a ton of updates if I restore this. So I do it. It's got lots of configurable options, a configuration file, and integration with everything. I mean, from Bacula to even commercial integration products, there's ways it can do this. It'll also, for example, once you create your bootable USB, obviously the boot files don't change. You can then create a separate repository over CIFS, NetFS, or any other mount system you want, and then you can just tell it daily, just recreate a new snapshot of my operating system, keep it over here. That way you can, at any given time, grab that file and grab the USB, merge the two together, and restore your operating system from a catastrophic failure.
That's cool.
So
well, it's like, is it Time Restore? Have you heard of it?
Yeah,
It's similar to that, isn't it? Or
Yeah, similar because that takes some snapshots of your system.
uh
This is really designed
for
is
offsite
command
or
line, bare
okay.
level, bare OS. My hard drive completely died. My computer doesn't boot. I want an image of it just loaded now.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of designed for it. And I, like I
Mhm.
said, for all the trouble I did to set up my virtualization system, I made sure I wanted a snapshot of it there. Because we back up all the virtual servers separately. They have their own backup scripts to back up to other systems. But in case the machine itself just blows up,
Mhm.
they can just put it in there and have it up and running.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
So those are my two tips I had. Those two products.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I got well one for sure. I I think about I don't know maybe it was a couple years ago I had mentioned Red Notebook on one of our episodes as a it's a journaling app. It's kind of the open source version of Microsoft's OneNote, and it there was some talk on Google Plus that caused me to mention it again as a solution for someone's situation. And they took a look at it, really liked it, and somebody else said, "Wow, this really looks neat." And I thought, "Well, shoot, I'm just gonna mention it again in case people who are listening haven't heard of it or are looking for something like this." What I use it to basically journal my financial markets activity uh, when I do it on a daily basis. And what I really like about it is that I've created a template that has all these things that I need, some screenshots, various other little bulleted items that I want to track, and then I just add it. I will take the template and load it in for the day, and then um, grab my screenshots using the screenshotting tool, and then I have those in a separate folder. And I have the URLs. All I have to do then is just put in the date, and the URL in Red Notebook is already set up for it. I can then export. I can export over a series of days. I can export that day. um, it's really a slick little program if you want to create a journal. And also I put tags in it so that for various asset classes that I interacted with that day, so that I can click on a tag over in the left column, and boom, all the posts that were associated with that tag pop up in the list, and
That's
then I
neat.
can go in and click on it.
I'm looking
Yeah.
at the some of the demo, and graphically, they did a great job.
Yeah.
They actually had some designers, not just developers, working on this.
Yeah,
And
it's very slick. And what's nice about it is that if you can export this and take it with you to another operating system if that's what you need to do.
does it save everything in one contiguous file, basically, for all this, or it has its own simplistic way? Or
Um, at, as far as
I wonder
where it
how the
gets
way to
saved.
transport. For example, I
Oh,
use with me using OwnCloud, for example, I didn't know
hmm
if it automatically, so I could sync it to my own cloud, so I can have it at home and at work easily.
I wouldn't be surprised if it
Okay.
did, because I changed. I know I had to change the location of the files where I stored my
Oh,
own entries.
yeah, I see it back to the zipper. I found it.
Okay,
Yay, cool.
Yeah.
so
Or
It's
even
very
at
slick.
worst, you could point the directory. It backs
Yeah.
everything up too.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Oh,
nice.
I like
Yeah.
that.
So anyway, I just thought it just kind of warrants another mention. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Well, in cross-platform, you're right. That's
hmm
Windows and Mac.
Mac, yeah,
Hmm.
and
So
several flavors of
yeah,
Linux
several
too,
flavor layers in BSD.
and BSD, yeah. So I mean, what's not to like about
What's
it?
not to like about that? I like
Yeah,
it.
Right.
yeah, and then there's a little donate button if you use it and you really like it. I did donate to the project because I really liked it and it was useful and helped
Mhm.
me, so I gave them a little money back.
Great. Very cool.
All right,
Oh,
so
I had a couple of security articles I wanted to mention.
okay,
One is how I'm sure you've heard in the news that GM had a flaw where with their OnStar smart app thing for your smartphone, where you can start your car from your app,
Yeah.
and you can unlock and lock it, and you could be whatever internet connected, so thousands of miles away, and you could still do it with your car.
start your car from
Right.
1,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible. And you just
Yeah.
can't get in and drive away with the car if it started.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Somebody else
but
could for you.
Yeah.
so the flaw was
Mhm.
that it was not an SSL site that was going to. It was everything was passed in clear text. So if you got your car to, or if you got somebody to connect and you could watch that traffic, then you can grab their username and password, which most smartphones now are connects to the free ATT Wi-Fi
Yep.
connection, like at any McDonald's or something. So you could sit at McDonald's and just be capturing pet traffic and get somebody's account, and then you can easily just walk up to their car, unlock it with through because now you have their login credentials, and then
And
grab your
ask them,
stuff.
would you like fries with that?
Yes.
Right. Well, what we found out is that it's not just GM iOS apps that do this, that also Mercedes, BMW, and Chrysler all have this similar problem.
Whoops.
Yeah, exactly. And even though BMW had been known about it, they still hadn't done anything by the time this article has been released.
Really?
Um,
This always
so
comes down to so many times there's never it's often not a problem with with the security, it's implementation that's done wrong.
Yeah.
SSL's not a secret. You know
Mhm.
why these developers would do these. I mean, look at Samsung and the keyboard hack we talked about 2 shows ago. It's because the entire keyboard update process was done over clear text with you can download and it's unsigned. So
Mhm.
Right.
you could just, oh great, no problem, just sniff the password. Any man in a middle attack can push it.
Yep.
So
yeah, and it's not hard to
implementation.
do.
No, SSL, just check the boxes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And who's not auditing the security people? Like if some developer says, "Oh man, I don't feel like loading certs when I'm in testing." Okay, while you're playing around in the lab, you don't feel like loading a cert special because you haven't set the site up yet. But how does it go out of the lab and into implementation, and no one's going, look at the traffic? I mean, someone just look at it. If they can read it, they should stop there. Go, wait a minute, what'd you guys miss?
Yeah,
Right.
that's for sure.
Grep for the
It's just
password, just simple as that. If it passes through the network and you can grep for it, you're like, wait a minute, call these guys up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Check that
That's an
SS
easy
device.
test too.
Yeah, that's always what kind of puzzles me is kind of are they too deep in the forest to see
Mhm.
the tree? What causes them to skip over such a glaringly obvious problem?
Because I think security is not there. See, security is kind of handled by a different group,
Yeah,
but security is everybody's business.
it really is.
I mean, they just need to look at it that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Quick note. So if you service like I do any Windows computers, you're familiar with the Crypto Locker ransomware.
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm not intimately familiar with it, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, the concept is you infect the computer and it holds your files for ransom, and they want some bitcoins. Usually, any other anonymous transaction system is what they're looking for, so they can't easily be determined. Who
So
they
if
are.
you're like a 70-year-old person, you don't have Bitcoin, most likely,
Right.
you're toast.
Right, and they were using like some money orders and things like that from local CVSs. But what does this have to do with open source? Someone made an open source version of it,
No.
and they published it on GitHub. Now he's getting some hate mail, and the guy says, "Okay, granted, my software wasn't detected. Maybe the first hour it was released, but quickly the antivirus." And he's just doing it as a proof of concept
Mhm.
to do this. Some people are hating on him because he's open sourcing it, and he kind of has the
Well,
attitude
who's
of
hating on them? Just the
the
general
community.
public,
Yeah,
or okay,
yeah.
or the
Stay
hacker,
out of the comments; they are
Oh,
profane.
okay.
Uh,
But it is kind of amusing. But he did it, I think, proof of concept, started playing around with it. Maybe the hackers will start using it, but also it's a way to look at the source code of how they're doing it and
Mhm.
maybe find flaws within their implementation.
Hmm.
Because someone found some really interesting flaws in the Crypto Locker overall with some analysis. Because sometimes hackers are lazy and want to get the product out there. They weren't encrypting all the files; they were only encrypting the headers.
And also I'd heard that in the early when this first came out, they had left the key on,
Yes.
so you could unlock it without paying, but
Yeah.
people didn't realize that.
Yeah,
for a
there's a
while.
couple anti-crypto locker things that would reverse it. So I thought it was interesting that someone made an open source one. And knock
Yeah.
on wood, so far no one's turned it on us Linux folks. But I do worry about that sometimes. With downloading
Unsigned things or things.
unsigned
Yeah.
and stuff like that. It's like I need this or I need that. It's like almost never that I do it. I've never had to do it on any of my main servers, but on my personal laptop, sometimes I'm like, I really need this, but where am I gonna get the file from? Because it's not in the part of the normal
Yeah.
repositories.
And
Right.
I tell you, that happened when I was trying to not crack but root my Samsung Galaxy 3. And there was the Ubuntu version of that just didn't seem to be working
Mhm.
right, and I just thought, oh, I'm gonna go to my Windows machine and just check. But I tell you, when I started to look, I've got a sandboxing system. There's a thing called
Yeah.
sandboxing. You ever heard of it?
Yep.
So what I try to do is, if I'm going to a place where I don't feel comfortable going, I will try to do it in a sandbox browser to try to
And
control things.
that's generally how I do. Is I have all the virtual
Hmm.
servers on here running VirtualBox. So I just spin up VirtualBox whenever I want to do something, create a snapshot, do a special thing I may have needed done, and exactly it. I've had to download binaries to root my phone. It was just
Hmm.
one of them too, and I don't know. They're untrusted. They're not. There's some guy publishing them. Okay, the comments tell me it's probably not, but
Yeah, he could have created a dozen accounts and put those comments there himself,
that's not hard to do.
Right.
So
or get
that's
some
always
Chinese people to do
I
that.
do fear that a little bit, because and unfortunately, majority was the first thing we're typing sudo. So we're giving root level access to these binaries we're
Yeah,
downloading on a regular
yeah.
basis. It's just a matter of time before someone exploits us and it gets us owned. I mean, granted, Linux is secure, but it's because it's not being as targeted at this user level. It's
Hmm.
being targeted at the server level, but there's no one even on my web servers. I'm not running random code I downloaded put on there. I mean, that would be insane. So I'm running nothing but trusted sources there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very cool.
That's what I got for security.
And then I had one last thing. I know the show's starting to
Yep.
run on right now, but
Hmm.
um, oh, but I was listening to Security Now podcast, and it wasn't its last episode. But on 520, their 10 year, they're the end
Yeah.
of the 10-year episode, and it was the like safe browsing kind of thing where
Yes.
he was talking about getting rid of um, no script and using other things, and he mentioned a plugin that I use all the time, and it's a privacy badger.
Okay.
And I use it on
That was by
Chrome,
the
and
EFF. Didn't they put that out?
exactly, yeah, and I've been
Okay.
using it for over a year. And he was talking about it it was this new thing that came out, and maybe because it hit the 1.0
Oh,
version,
Yeah.
sure,
so he
sure.
saw the news article on it. But it's something I've been using it, and again, it's by the EFF. What they
Hmm.
do is they selectively block things that are bad, not just all ads, not all scripts. It's things that are
That,
known to be bad
yeah,
or tracking you.
that make
Uh,
their list.
right, and well, and it goes beyond that.
Hmm.
Has intelligence built in where
Uh-huh.
if it is a third party browser or a third party tracker that hits more than three different websites, or is or if you browse more than three different websites, then it starts blocking it, things like that. And so it's not just a whitelist; it has a lot of intelligence built into it. So definitely, if you're looking for something that'll help like with tracking and stuff like that, then look up Privacy Badger. It's on the EFF website, and the link will be in the show notes.
Oh, cool.
All right.
Yeah. All right. And last, I think on our list,
That's right. It's
uh,
our last show of August, so I've got the Linux convention scene actually Linux and open source software convention scene for September 2015. And actually, this particular list has three conventions on it. September 16th through the 18th, we have got the Org Developers Conference at Seneca College's campus at York University in Toronto, Ontario. Some of the talks include atomic mode setting for drivers.
hmm,
Mm, a status update on NVIDIA's performance counters for Nouveau. And then also my favorite was their annual update, the Xorg Foundation's annual update. Expect thrill, excitement, confetti balloons, a pink elephant, or none of the above.
yeah.
So
Is that why you're going to Toronto?
yeah,
You're going to go to
no,
the Xorg conference?
um, yeah, no, I'm that's several weeks afterwards. But
Oh, okay.
September 18th and 19th at in Kiel, Germany, Deutschland, we've got the Keeler Linux Tag, and that is going to have some workshops such as GIMP for beginners and how to use GIMP for editing
I need to
photographs.
learn. Yep.
You need to learn it.
I need to learn.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I don't know all there is to know about it, but I tell you, it really helps me clean up images, and I've made some pretty funny images.
I use Photoshop because I haven't found all the functions in GIMP. I don't know if I'm missing them.
Oh,
That's my
okay.
problem. I do a lot of advanced stuff. So
Yeah. So they've got workshops on Inkscape. They've got you know things like workshop, mail it yourself, setting up a mail server. So there's a bunch of really cool workshops. And again,
Nice.
that's at the Keeler Linux Tag in Kiel, Germany, on September 18th and 19th. And last but not least, which actually is going to be before any of those, is VBSDCon. Now, this is September 11th through the 13th, 2015, in Reston, Virginia, at the Sheraton Hotel there. This exciting weekend will bring together members of the BSD community for a series of roundtable discussions, educational sessions, best practice conversations, and exclusive networking opportunities. So they'll have things like uh, interesting things you didn't know you could do with ZFS, which is a very hot file system. Well, it's more than just a file system; it's a kind of an environment.
Hmm.
And I don't know what's going on with my phone. It's probably been hacked. It was off, and it's been off, and now it just turned on by itself. And then free BSD virtualization options. You know, they have Beehive, their virtualization system, and and in a PC BSD, I will run VirtualBox, which is kind of a client level,
Yeah.
low level virtualization. But anyway, so they're gonna have a lot of cool things there. So that's VBSDCon.
All right.
And that is the September Linux and open source software convention scene. Little bit of something for everybody in there.
Right. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
All right, we have a little bit of listener feedback. We just had one email for this last bit, and it was about that there's an image missing on the website, so I need to get that updated. It's our logo image.
Oh,
Our logo.
Yeah,
Just our-
and-
Yeah, just the logo.
don't worry, we got a
Yeah.
new one coming.
right.
Yeah, we're gonna have a nicer one coming.
Yep. So so that'll get updated either with the new one or I'll just I'll fix the file, and then when we get the new one in there, we'll throw that in.
Okay, that sounds good.
And I guess we're coming to the end of the show. We got music.
Great,
And
Tony.
I figured that since we're doing the 5 9s, that we should have a 9 Inch Nails song.
There you go.
There you go.
Right. And if you don't remember from us talking in the past, 9 Inch Nails went through and CC'd or Creative Commons licensed a couple of their albums. So we have, it's the Ghosts 1 through 5 all albums.
Hmm.
And what I'll do is we'll look for a random number.
A random number.
Uh,
How about 17? Or the parameters? What are the constraints on the number?
I think it's 35 is the
You can go no higher than 35? 26. Do you want another random number? 19.
19.
Yeah.
Let's go with 19.
Okay.
Um,
That's a prime number.
ooh, yeah. So go. Let's see. 19
Mhm.
is track
All right.
38.
19 is track 38.
Yeah. And here we go.
All right. You can play the whole thing.
Just as long as I'm typing.
All right. Hey, that was a good one I picked, wasn't it?
Yeah. All right.
Tony, that's
Mute
a real
that.
toe.
My mute's not working. Oh no. There we go.
Oh my God. Tony, that was a real toe tapper. If you're a club-footed monster.
Right.
All right.
So yeah. So check that out. Kind of interesting.
Or
stuff there.
not.
Right.
Oh,
Full thing will be in the episode, the edited episode. I don't know why I can't think right now.
that's okay. It's Sunday. It's
That's
It's
right. I've got a
Sunday.
headache coming on. I
yeah,
think that's what
that's
it
all
is.
right. The final version of that song will be on the audio. Link.
Edited version.
Edited
Yes.
version.
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
I think we all have. Well, probably not Tom, but you and I are. Yeah, we're in the same boat.
I only had one
And we're
cup of coffee so far today. That's it.
Oh no, I had a half a pot at home before I got here.
Oh. All
So,
right.
okay.
All right. So you've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. This was episode 157.
5 9 and
Yep. 1.9999999.
5 9 and yeah, there we
Yeah.
go.
This is Tony Bemis,
Mary Tomich.
Tom Lawrence.
and
We'll see you next episode.
yeah.
Yep.
See you soon. All right. Thank you for listening on YouTube.
Yep.
So
Thanks.
you'll see the polished version on our website.
All right. Oh, I was just wondering.
We should add the
You-
website to that lower third.
I tried, and it runs off. Here, so we'll look at that. And,
Okay.
All right. Have a good night, or
Okay.
week, or bye week, or
Have a good
I don't
life.
know.
Have a good
Very
life.
good life.
It covers
That's
it all.
right.
Yeah.
It covers it all.
Goodbye, YouTubers.
Bye.